you do need to increase security. So one of the things that I tell people to do is if you should only have doors open that are monitored by security. It doesn't matter if they're armed or unarmed. You should just have somebody watching the door dedicated to looking for threats. My personal opinion, you should be standing outside the door, looking outside in the parking lot so you can see well beforehand when the threat comes, and then you can do lockdown procedures if you see a threat coming. Everybody, today we're going to talk about all of the threats that have happened at churches, all the attacks, all the shootings, and everything that's happened since we raised our church security threat level to red or severe risk of attack. Now, since then, we've had active shooters at church schools, multiple. We've had a couple terrorist incidents and some other things that have shown credence to why we raised our alert level. We're going to talk about what is coming up in the pipeline. I've talked to my contacts at FBI, Homeland Security, and different places to bring you the best information to let you know the threats that are facing us pretty imminently here in the United States when it comes to churches. Now, if you are new to the channel, you're a Christian Warrior Training, where we talk about everything about church security, about keeping your church safe. Now, if you're not a believer, you're still welcome to stay here. We talk about everything about self-protection, protecting others from our families to our congregations, how to use force if we need to in a biblical way so that we're using it to defend others and doing what is right in the Lord's eyes. Now, back on October 3rd, we raised the church security threat level system to its highest level, which is severe or red, because of many different indicators that were coming from our intelligence agencies, from what the government was saying, which you can see by my shirt here. I don't put a lot of faith in the government. I put a lot of faith in God. By the way, if you want this shirt, you can find it over at my merch store. You want to check out Acts chapter 5, verse 29 as well. It goes along nicely with trust God, not the government. But you can get this shirt over in my merch store. I've got a lot of different stuff that you might like over there. I'll put the link down below. But there was stuff that the government was putting out to us to let us know that stuff was coming up. I do have friends that work intelligence that were giving us information. And I'm using my 30 years of experience as a police officer, including 20 years on SWAT in the San Francisco Bay Area, to help make you understand the threat landscape that's out there right now. Now, some of this information also comes from an interview I did with a Joint Terrorism Task Force agent who specialized in working Hezbollah in California and across the United States. You can check out his interview over here, and he spills the beans about everything. He put his career at risk to come talk to us and let us know the stuff that the government doesn't really want released. Now, again, since October 3rd, we have seen ISIS come out and other extremist groups come out and tell their followers to attack Christian churches and Christian schools in the United States. There was a great interview with a CIA targeter named Sarah Adams over on the Sean Ryan Show. You should probably go check that out. She is basically telling you on the Sean Ryan Show the exact same information I've been telling you for at least a year, if not more. The biggest threat that we have to our churches right now are lone wolf attacks from radicalized people within the United States. That is pretty much what we have seen since October 3rd, are those lone wolf actors that have been radicalized. But we know a bigger attack is coming, like in October 7th, what happened in Israel, where a lot of the people working in intelligence are worried that something like that is going to happen here in the United States on a very larger scale. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a video I have coming up on my predictions for 2025, which include more specific details about what those attacks are going to look like if they do or when they happen, and how they're going to play out, so you have a better understanding of what to expect. Let's talk about the incidents that have happened since October 3rd, since we raised that alert level. Now, we had an incident on November 2nd, just a month later, where a man entered a church with a tactical rifle. It was an AR during Mass. Now, he was asked to leave during a Mass because he was being disruptive. He left, picked up an AR. People were hinked up on him when he left. They thought he might come back and do something bad, which it's awesome that people listen to their inner voice. That inner voice, a lot of times I personally think it's God talking to you to let you know that warning you that danger is coming. In this instance, the church staff locked the doors, blocked everything up, and then when he came back, he had an AR. I do believe that if they had not locked everything up and done a lockdown procedure, that a lot of people would have died that day. And he was taken into custody. You did not hear a lot about that in the news, though, because the mainstream media didn't fit their agenda, which they are only reporting certain things that fit what they want to tell you. There was also a church attack that was averted in North Texas back on November 26. Now, going back to see something, say something, a neighbor early in the morning saw a van parked in front of their house that they thought was suspicious. They called the police. When police contacted them, it was packed full of explosives, guns, and ammunition. And the man admitted that he had planned to attack a church that morning. So if that neighbor had not alerted authorities that there was a suspicious vehicle and there weren't good cops out there digging and looking and interviewing, then this man would have carried out an attack using explosives and guns to attack a nearby church that was in White Settlement, Texas. Again, on November 26th. On December 4th, we had a tragic incident in Butte County, California. That is where a man posing to be a parent looking to find a new school for their children went to the Feather River Adventist School, which is a private Christian school in Northern California, in rural Northern California. When he entered the school under the guise of looking to see if he was going to place his child there, he shot 2 kindergartners and then killed himself. Those 2 kindergartners are still in critical condition, going through multiple surgeries. And the man had these writings blaming Israel for attacking Hamas and some ramblings going on. Again, that lone wolf attack that we talked about back on October 3rd when we warned you that these things were going to happen. Now, this church, I did a full debrief of this. Actually, I've done debriefs of all these incidents over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Please go over there, sign up for the newsletter. It's all free if you want. I appreciate it if you pay the $8 a month because it helps me keep this ministry going. But if you can't afford it, don't worry about it. It's all good. God finds a way to provide. So we're okay. I do debriefs of these incidents all the time. In this one, I debriefed Feather River Adventist school shooting. And I talked about all the ways that this school was easy to attack and how it should have been prevented, but wasn't. I just wish people would listen to the warnings that I've been putting out for a year, specifically the one back on October 3rd that said we're raising the alert level system. Now, there was a gunman that went to a Suffolk church on December 15th. Now, a gunman went into the Sunday service and tried to shoot the pastor. But security jumped on him right away and stopped him. The round missed the pastor and he was subdued and taken into custody. Just a couple days later, we had an active shooter at a Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin, where multiple people were shot and a couple people died, including children. Now, that incident, I have not done a full debrief on. You guys know that I am battling health issues. And I've been tracking that incident and I'm ready to do a full debrief on it. I just haven't been able to have the energy to do that. I do plan on getting that done for you guys, but it was an insider. I put up the child's manifesto on why they did this shooting. I do believe that, again, this one could have been prevented as well by having church security on staff at the school to intervene right away. And then also, if people had seen the warning signs from this child, they could have intervened and kept the shooting from happening. Again, another lone wolf insider attack, which is our biggest problem that we have to worry about right now. And then, of course, on December 31st, we had an ISIS-inspired attack in New Orleans that targeted a public location where a man mowed down 10 people. And looking back on that person's history, he had an ISIS flag, but he was flying it upside down. I do believe that this, again, it's a lone wolf attack, not really organized. It's another crazy person that is using the ISIS call to attack churches and attack other people as an excuse to do mass murder. This is their excuse and their kind of claim to make something happen. Could he have been radicalized somewhere down the road? Sure. But a lot of people are saying that they're surprised by this action. And when people are radicalized, there's usually warning signs ahead of time. Now, those are the incidents that have happened since October 3rd when we told you to raise your alert level at your church. Okay. As with me telling you what's going on, I also tell you how to prevent stuff like this from happening at your church. Now, I always tell you to not freak out when you hear this news. Now, I'm sure you just heard everything I said and you were shocked about what is going on in the world. Some of that you probably have not heard about and you're upset that this is the first time you're hearing about it. You don't want to turn your church into a bunker. You want to keep your church wide open so people can come worship Christ and not have any kind of an impediment from them coming in. If you have guys with AR-15 standing out front, bag checks, doing stuff like that, that's going to keep people from coming inside because they're going to be afraid to come. Stop doing that. Don't do that. Let people come in. You can have uniformed security. That's fine. That makes people feel safe. You can have unarmed security. That's fine. But you should be doing certain things to protect your people within so they can come in. It's fairly easy to do. Okay. Now, when I do my video about my predictions for 2025, when I have that coming up, I'm here to tell you that there will be a rise in active shooters. There will be a rise in terrorist activity in the United States. And a lot of that is going to target churches. So you have to do your best to stop that from happening. The first thing that you should do is enhance your security measures. You should have a security team for your church. I have lots of resources over at christianwarriortraining.com. It is all free to go over there and set up a security team at your church. Simply picking somebody because they're a concealed carrier is not good enough. I've seen a lot of concealed carriers that I believe are pretty inept and shouldn't be carrying a gun because they're going to hurt themselves or others. You should have training, which you can get that free training over at christianwarriortraining.com. All free. Go take the training. You'll get a certificate as well. But you do need to increase security. So one of the things that I tell people to do is if you should only have doors open that are monitored by security. It doesn't matter if they're armed or unarmed. You should just have somebody watching the door dedicated to looking for threats. My personal opinion, you should be standing outside the door, looking outside in the parking lot, so you can see well beforehand when the threat comes, and then you can do lockdown procedures if you see a threat coming, lock those doors down, keep people from coming in, and then shuttle your people to a safe space and call 911 and let law enforcement handle it. If you're armed, perfect. But you shouldn't have any door that's unprotected. There shouldn't be a door open that there is not a physical person standing there watching the door. Now, if that doesn't count if you have a camera and somebody watching a camera and watching that door. That doesn't count, okay? You shouldn't have a door open and unlocked that doesn't have somebody standing there watching it. If you go back to christianwarriortraining.com and look at my debrief videos, I will show you videos of active shooters. A majority of them start in the parking lot where you could have seen the crazy coming and locked the doors and kept them from entering in the first place. A majority of the active shooters. So just having somebody standing there is perfect. Lock the doors, keep them from coming in. You should do risk assessments of your church. One of the things I talk about is red teaming your church, which means I look at my church and I figure out how am I going to attack it. So I look at my church and I figure out how am I going to attack it. I could look at the doors and see that they're all glass and there's no bollards out front. And I could drive a car right through those glass doors and drive into the lobby, jump out with a rifle and start killing people. That tells me I should probably put some kind of a barricade up front to keep somebody from ramming the doors. Now, look, I bring this up because vehicle ramming is becoming very popular around the world for terrorists. We saw that in New Orleans and we saw that in Germany just a couple of weeks ago. You should be prepared for that. Your church is a target. You need to wake up and realize that your church is a place where this is going to happen. And if you think it can't happen because you live in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho had a man arrested that was a follower of ISIS that was going to attack churches on Sunday. He was arrested by the FBI on Saturday. So that is in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, in the middle of nowhere. So if you think it can't happen to you, you're wrong. So do that threat assessment and look at your church and figure out, I'm going to attack my church. How am I going to do it? And start figuring out how to fix those problems. You need to reach out to law enforcement and you need to go talk to them. When I was a patrol officer, I would drive into church parking lots on Sunday. Occasionally somebody would flag me down and say, hey, how are you? And every once in a while, somebody would ask me about crime trends and what's going on in the area. I would give them the unadulterated truth because I'm a patrol officer. I'm going to tell them what's going on. If you ask a chief, a sheriff, or a captain or somebody like that, they are not going to tell you the truth. They're going to give you the watered down version that everything is fine. Don't worry about it. But that patrol cop is going to be like, yeah, man, there's like a terrorist cell that lives down the street that the FBI has been watching and the FBI is not cooperating with us. I mean, they will tell you everything, usually. So become friends with that patrol cop and then get their information and invite them to all your church functions. If you invited me to a church dinner, I'm going to come. You know why? Because I'm dealing with drug addicts and bad people all day. And you want me to come to a church and have dinner with them and everybody's going to talk about how much they love me and they want to pray for me? Yeah, man, I'm going to the church that time to go eat and go hang around with cool people. You want to make sure you have training for your security team and your volunteers, your church parking lot people, your people monitoring the door, your ushers should all get training on how to identify bad people. How can you do that? Go to ChristianWarriorTraining.com, hit the training tab, and I have a class specifically on how to identify threats to your church. Have all those people take that class. It's about a half an hour. No big deal. Half an hour. Have them take that. They understand what they're looking for. And then it's all done. Super easy peasy, man. ChristianWarriorTraining.com, hit that training tab. The other thing is to let your congregation know that times have changed and that they should all pay attention. In your newsletter, when the pastor is up front speaking and giving all the news of everything that's going on right now, let them know, hey, we have a security team. Things have changed. Things have changed in the United States. Use what happened in New Orleans as a springboard for a conversation and tell them, hey, we need to concentrate on our church to make sure it's safe. If you see something, say something. We have a security team that's here to protect us. By the way, if you want to join the security team, you can go ahead and talk to me at the end of the service and then we'll set you up. But do something like that so that everybody's aware and everybody starts paying attention. Now, look, God has given us all the tools that we need to prepare. A good example is Luke 22, verse 36, where Jesus told his disciples to be prepared in times of danger. He specifically said, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Disciples turned around and responded and said, we have two swords. It wasn't that one sword was enough. They had two, right? So it shows you the importance of that. We can go back to Old Testament to Nehemiah when they were rebuilding the walls in Jerusalem. And Nehemiah organized the people to pray and prepare for potential attacks. It was a combination of faith and practical action. So I want to emphasize that preparedness is not an act of fear, but one of faith and responsibility. Look, I go out to the range as much as I can. I try to go once a week and I practice and I drill and I share those drills with you over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. And here on the YouTube channel, but more on the newsletter. I don't do as much here as I should. Now, look, I'm not practicing because I'm scared. I'm preparing because God gave me these skills and gave me these tools, and I'm going to be responsible and faithful, and I'm going to practice because God put me on this earth to protect the congregations, and that's what I'm doing. And I think I do a pretty good job at it, and I think you do too. And that's why I practice. God gives us these tools and these opportunities, like me speaking to you, to protect his people. Now, we want to trust in God's provision while taking those necessary steps to safeguard his congregation. I like to look back at James chapter 2, verse 17. Faith without works is dead. So preparation to me is an act of faith to our Lord. You want to trust in God's sovereignty, but you also want to recognize that there is a need to act. Now, look, do me a favor in the comments. Let me know about what you think about everything I just said about the biblical perspective. I am not as well versed in scripture as most of you are, and I learn a lot from what you guys say in the comments. Leave a note in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your views. I want to emphasize that we are at severe risk of attack, condition red. Since I moved our threat level up, we have had multiple attacks against Christians in the United States with a lot of people that have died. I didn't take it lightly. You need to pay attention. I don't want you to be scared. I just want you to prepare. I want you to keep your churches wide open so people can come worship. And I just want you to take your job of protecting our congregations seriously. Now, if you're a concealed carrier and you're not on the security team, that's fine. Coordinate with your security team, talk to them, and just be mindful. Go worship with your family. Don't be afraid. This is written in scripture about what's going to happen in the world. I mean, like the daily thing is to look at Revelation and say, where are we at today in Revelation, right? I just want you to understand that there is a threat to our churches and our schools, and I want you to take it seriously. If you are in charge of a Christian school, I want you to take action now. I want you to prepare, train, and protect your children. We've had 2 school shootings with multiple people killed and injured in the last month. What other warning do you need? I want to highlight that readiness shows faith in God's provision, and it's the responsibility that we have to protect his people. Now, look, I want you to remain vigilant and proactive. I want you to put your trust in God as we all safeguard our communities. I want you to pray to our Lord for the safety of you, your family, our churches, our country. And then I also want you to remember your ABCs. Always be caring.